the production team on this, the design team, Christine Jones is somebody I've worked with a couple of times. She's worked in Minnesota many times, I think, with Doug Verone. And it was one of our first collaborations, and Constance Hoffman as well. And we were looking for a way into Lucia that wasn't dealing too much with... There were two things that we didn't want to deal with. One, that it really sucked to be a woman in the 19th century, because we all know that. And two, anything that had to do with authentic Scottish history, because the piece has nothing to do with that. I mean, it's inspired by the novel, but it has really nothing to do with the politics. And has anybody tried to read that book? Anyway? Yeah. And it's got like an inch of dust on it, because that's, yeah. It's like Ambien or this novel. I mean, they both work, right? So... However, it was wildly popular and at the time, and one can certainly understand why Donizetti was inspired by it. So instead of approaching this, with architectural elements that evoked, ye olde Scotland, we thought it would be more interesting to do something that was much more visceral, much more sculptural, much more kind of animalistic in a way, because the behavior of everybody in this is so bizarre. Everybody's kind of desperate. Everybody's sort of, you have lots of extremes in this. I remember traveling in this area of Scotland once, and I was struck by how aggressive the landscape is. There's a lot of odd color. You have there was snow in the Highlands, it was just brutal. And it reminded me of, both Christine and I, there's a wonderful painter who does sort of abstract landscapes named Wolf Kahn. He does them mostly in pastels. But then there's an architect named Louis Kahn. And Louis Kahn was a brutalist architect, and brutalist kind of means ugly these days, I guess, even though there's a big movement to preserve a lot of the brutalist architecture. I don't know whether there are any examples of that here, of any of Louis Kahn's work, but if any of you know, like the Alley Theater in Houston, it's all this harsh, poured concrete. It's like the uglier the better, or the more it fits into its landscape in a really aggressive way. So we were drawn to both of these guys. But anyway, it really came down to the characters. And one of the striking things in Lucia, of course, is that Lucia doesn't have any positive role models. And she only has, as somebody said, the good friend, Elisa, in here. But there are no parents to speak of. And she's kind of like kept as a child a lot. She's like somebody who's never really grown up, never really developed. She has a vivid imagination. She's lonely. And then Edgardo is also an incredibly impractical person. And he's like your example of a poet, and probably from an equally sort of lonely existence. Enrico is desperate. It's all about money, of course. And he commodifies his sister, obviously. So that's how he can keep the crumbling empire together. And Arturo, of course, is it's like making a land grab. It's a good opportunity, It's mergers and acquisitions as opposed to marriage and honeymoons, right? Well, that honeymoon didn't turn out so well. And then, of course, the voice of reason, Raimondo, is the closest thing we have in the piece to somebody who represents the church or what one should do and God, and he uses his notions of religion and what is right in a subtle but sort of hard-edged way to get Lucia to do what is good for everybody, including himself, because of course he's got to look out for all of his own interests, because at that time, if we look at historically, somebody like Raimondo could lose a job really easily. You could be sent off to somebody else's place. So anyway, that was the way we approached it. I guess the first thing to do is to sort of look at what this is like. So it's these two curved walls that move around, and everybody is in leather and shearling, and it's good that we're doing this in February. And then the next scene is Lucia. These mountains move around, and everything is frozen. So it's like the fountain is actually this thing here. So it's a fairly abstract environment. And then this is, so this is where it's kind of like an interrogation room where she's being coerced into marrying this guy. So we have the wedding dress in there, and your brother's gonna cut your old dress off of you and all that fun stuff. And what's next? That's the wedding reception. So it's a big table, and Lucia's put on the table. So that was very common it still is done, standing brides primarily on tables. It's an odd sort of tradition that still continues, and in some places where they abuse their sisters. I don't know. Anyway, this is the tower scene, and in that window up there, we actually see what's going on during the honeymoon. And that's Lucia up there smearing blood all over the window. And there are these portals that come in, and it's kind of a little hard to see what they are, but this this area here, and they're all in black with kind of crazy. It's as if how do I put this in a non-politically offensive way? It's as if a disturbed child had been given a box of crayons or chalk and said, "Show me what's going on in your mind right now." And we think of this as kind of Lucia's world. So the portals are all surrounded with this sort of crazy etching, and that doesn't really represent anything other than something that's, like mental electricity, I guess. And the next thing, Ruh-roh, that is when Lucia comes back and for the mad scene, and everything turns these crazy colors. And this is the final scene, and there are these graves downstage, and that's Edgardo, and that's actually the moon or the ring that binds them, and that's kind of it. And what are the costumes? Do we have sketches? So she's got this sort of girlish sort of dress on the left, and then a nice big fur coat. She may be brutalized, but she can have a fur coat, so that's all right. Corset and wedding dress, and the wedding dress is very, very tight. So it's like being straitjacketed. And that's it after she kills Arturo. That's her BFF. That is Edgardo. Looks kind of like a poet, yes. Enrico in a big coat. Arturo, who's wearing black leather. Raimondo, yeah. Normano. The guys. And the way the women don't have much of a role in this show. It's like they have that one, the wedding contract scene, and then the reception. And it's kind of like the way she views all women in this, as if they've been stripped of identity. So whereas there's more variation in what the men look like, all of the women kind of look like, Dracula's brides or something like that. Is that it? And Minnesota Opera. All right, so so that's it. Any questions? No? All right. So this is such a great piece, and I'm always amazed at just how dynamic it is, and when people really sink their teeth into it, and it is, this wonderful, as as Leo was saying, it can so easily be kind of a tepid soap opera, but I think once you get down to sort of the nitty-gritty and the visceral elements in it, it is a mean ride, and it's really a lot of fun. So, well, fun. All right, thanks.